Welcome everybody. Just now I was looking at the clock here. It says 1:30. You must be coming all the way from East Coast. Yeah, thank you so much for coming. And my name is Peter Chen. I'm a faculty in the Instructional Psychology and Psychology departments at BYU. And so we welcome you again to this conference, but especially to this session. And so we have an hour, and we have three great presenters who will be presenting to you. And I know they have been coordinating with each other and helping to give you a very smooth transition between the two major presentations. And our first two presenters are Monica Gibson and Amanda Mary Sopko. Yeah? And I've asked them to introduce themselves. And our next presentation is by Karma Maples. Sorry. Yeah, and I've also asked her to introduce herself. So I'll just go ahead and turn it back to you all.
Great. So, hi, I'm Amanda Sopko.
I'm Monica Gibson.
Thanks for coming. Today we want to talk about, in our district where we teach in Indian Hills, Cincinnati, Ohio, we have a large population of gifted children. About 65% of our district has been state identified as gifted. So,
if you teach intervention specialists are like,
yes. So if you teach in our district, you teach gifted children. Like, you can't avoid them; they're everywhere.
Why is that?
So we teach in one of the most affluent areas of Ohio, and so, you know, what we know about gifted children is maybe it's a little bit of nature, maybe it's a little bit of nurture, probably it's a mixture of both, and so these children have highly gifted parents who are
well performing in their career.
Yes. So that kind of adds to it. So before we get started though, a little bit about ourselves. My name is Amanda Sopko. As I said, I teach 6th grade math, I teach STEM, and I teach part of our gifted pull-out program. It's called Discovery. So I have a group of kiddos every afternoon who come to me and we just explore your giftedness and what is so great about the things you can do and how you use those powers for good. I got my bachelor's and master's at Kent State University in middle childhood and math instruction, and then from Xavier University in Cincinnati is where I got my GIS. I love to run and travel. We travel the world as much as we can, creating and being party planning. I love doing kids parties. They're super fun for me.
So I'm the district TESOL specialist and coordinator. So I teach grades K through 12. And I coordinate services for the English language learners, but then I also am on the gifted intervention specialist team. I have a master's in special education gifted concentration from Xavier University in Cincinnati, Ohio, and then I also have a TESOL humanities and history degree here from BYU. So it's both of our 17th year teaching, and we love it. So. Yeah, we're here to share with you. So hopefully we can give you something that will help you transform your practice.
So first of all, before we get into this, how many gifted intervention specialists do we have in here? So a little bit about what giftedness looks like. A lot of times we think the gifted kid is the A+ student, and maybe it is. Sometimes it is. The little perfectionists, they are going to be the A+ students. But more often than not, it's the kids who we hear these types or have these thoughts or hear these types of comments from our teachers, you know, his little motor is always going, or he's wise beyond his years. He makes those mental leaps really quickly. They'll pick up on information with 5 to 7 repetitions possibly, whereas a normal average student, typical student would need 12 to 20 repetitions on a skill before they can master it. So these guys will pick it up super, super fast. They might seem like they're not paying attention, but really they've got it all. Like it's right there. They create these challenges for themselves. So one of the biggest challenges with gifted students is a lot of them have these overexcitabilities. And I have this table, it's the first page for you. Overexcitabilities or intensities are these kind of traits that we see in a lot of gifted children. The emotional ones, the kids who seem to just fly off the handle really quick. One bad thing goes wrong and it's the day is ruined, it's terrible. But they also experience intense joy too. So when things are really great, they're really great for these kiddos. Imaginational. These are the kids who are probably creatively gifted also. Anybody who's a Harry Potter fan, you might want to think of Luna Lovegood. That's kind of your creatively gifted children. The intellectual, that's what we often think of, those kids who are making those mental leaps, just love learning, seeking out learning opportunities. Psychomotor, the ones who are just always on the go. They might make weird sounds because they just like how it feels on their lips, or they just can't not, gum helps. Toss them a piece of gum and then the sounds go away, usually, most of the time. And then the sensual ones, the ones who these lights might bother because they hear the buzzing, even though we may not hear the buzzing, or they see the flickering because our eyes might not pick it up, but they have that really intense ability to recognize those things out in the environment. So, we think of these things sometimes as bad, but there's really a lot of good, positive sides to having some of these intensities as well. So we just try to love and appreciate and accept all of those children, despite what they're coming to us as. And then we gave you a list of things that maybe you as parents or teachers can do to support those children in the classroom or in the home who have those these intensities. And just to remember that a lot of times with gifted kids, they also have the asynchronous development, which means while they're growing so rapidly intellectually, socially, they're still just a second or third grader or whatever, they're still a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old. And so to appreciate that and kind of help those children bridge those gaps and find them a safe place where they can say, you know what, it's okay to be, let's go, let's explore this here. And then let's also talk about how we get along with our friends. So, on the second page, we have just a little more information for you on the difference between a high-achieving, now this is Bertie Kingor, she is one of the gifted gurus. If you're interested in ever looking at anything, she's just amazing. She knows so much, has so much information and so many great ideas to share with you. But she came up with this really fantastic chart. And it goes through what a high achiever, might look like. Push the wrong button. Okay. And so those are those kids, those are just those A students. They're not processing at a speed that a gifted learner might, but they're those kids who are probably still going to be in those advanced classes because they're really hard workers. They love school, they want to learn, but they have to work a little harder. They're not quite gifted. The gifted learner, as you'll see, has slightly different traits. They're more curious. They want to know why. They want to dive in. They might not be the best student in the class because they're maybe bored with what's going on. It took them, they learned it for 5 minutes, now I got to sit here for 10 more minutes while the rest of the class catches up, or 3 more days while the rest of the class catches up. So any way that you can just give them the opportunity to continue learning and exploring, even more so if you have time in their area of interests, those are what those kids need. That while the other students are still learning the content that you're teaching. Now a creative learner, those are those kids who kind of have that imaginational excitability, but beyond. They are just always on another planet, it seems like sometimes, and they're just wanting, creating stories, creating art, creating games, very complex games maybe that none of the other children quite get. Because there's so many rules to them. So help them find their people too, because they're out there, they'll find them. And in all these cases, there's a Japanese term that I absolutely love, ikigai, and that's basically your reason for being. It's where you take what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what we can make money doing, and bringing that all together and like really honing in on that gift and making that something that you can share with the world. So, and just a little information on gifted kids. You may not have it at a school where 65% of your students are gifted, but 18 to 25%, 6% of students in the U.S. are identified as gifted, about that percent. And however, 18 to 25% of them, of those students who are identified as gifted, they don't always reach graduation. They tend to drop out. And that's, you know, that's an us problem. What can we do to engage those students, to keep them involved, to help them find where they need to be? And that's where we come in. Yeah, a couple of students. Now, Monica's going to give you some more information on students who maybe don't seem to fit that mold that we've identified.
So with gifted identification, every state has different rules about how to identify a gifted student. And so in the state of Ohio, to be state identified gifted, you have to have a cognitive assessment of 95th percentile or higher, and then also an academic achievement score. We use the map of 95th or higher. So because we have so many students who are gifted, all of them would be leaving for their special class, and like everybody would be going, which has changed the way that we address the needs of our gifted learners, like in the classroom. But in order to go to the selective class that focuses on the social emotional needs of the students, where they're working through interesting problems, we have a cutoff criteria of a cognitive assessment of 98th, 99th, and also an academic achievement score of 98th or 99th percentile. Because if we follow the state criteria, then again, 65% of our students would be doing classes. So this we have a great problem to deal with. But we, as a district, we've asked ourselves, who are we missing? And we realized that we were missing our English language learners because there's this barrier to identifying them. So some of the barriers that exist, like in a lot of gifted programs, English language learners are under-identified, and it's because they have fewer opportunities to express their giftedness. It's also because a lot of them come from cultures that display giftedness in a different way. And so some programs identify gifted students based on teacher recommendation, and research has shown that in programs where they study gifted identification of English language learners, when it's done by the teacher, there have been no referrals from the teacher of English language learners. So this is a problem. So there also is another barrier, oftentimes, of like an explicit policy for the district. Like, how do we identify an English language learner? And it can be messy, and so it's a challenge. That's a barrier. First of all, let's talk a little bit about the characteristics of gifted English language learners, because I think if you understand the characteristics of them, then that would help you identify them. So gifted English language learners often acquire English rapidly. They're very good at code switching, navigating between cultures. Like, these are students who are often really strong and motivated to maybe translate for their parents. You see a lot of cultural maturity, and linguistic maturity. So that is an element of gifted English language learners. Some identification strategies, again, there are multiple factors. You can use cognitive assessments, and I'm going to get into that, I think, a little bit more. So, but really, I think thinking about their characteristics, thinking about the barriers, and then looking at some of these identification strategies, you can see how they connect. Like, beware that all cultures don't share the same values. So if the parent is saying, well, they do this at home, and the teacher's like, well, that doesn't mean anything to me. Or the parent might see that in their culture, but the teacher doesn't. Often, also another barrier is that the parents can't advocate for their students because they don't speak enough English. I was talking to a teacher that I met just yesterday, and she was saying that she had a family come to her and say, I need your help. Like, we speak Spanish here, and my son is gifted, but they want to put them into the, remediation classes, and like, he is super smart, like, he doesn't need this, like, help us navigate this. So I think even the notion of of advocating for your child is a cultural thing, right? So it's complex. Okay, so I have two student profiles. These are two of my students, and both of them have been identified as gifted, and they're both so different. So I just wanted to bring this up. So I have a student who just moved in this school year. Her fall English proficiency level based on her state mandated language proficiency assessment was a level 1. So she came in and I would ask her questions. She's like, I don't know. That's what she was saying. When she took her math assessment in September, she was in the 55th percentile. By December, she was in the 92nd. So we're like, whoa, hold on a minute here. You didn't just learn how to do math, but you've now figured out enough language that she can.
What grade was that?
She is in 3rd grade. And then so all of our students take the COGAT assessment. It's state mandated, which is a cognitive assessment to identify giftedness. And what we have decided as a district to do is look at the nonverbal scores of English language learners. So we're looking at their scores taking language out, which this assessment is able to do, and so then we can really see where she's at. So her cognitive assessment was 99th percentile, and within 1 year, she tested out with ESL, like tested out, which it typically takes 3 to 5 to 7 years. So that's one student I have. Another student, a longtime English language learner, she comes in and she's lived all over the country and she speaks English brilliantly, and she cannot pass her English proficiency assessment because the writing is just too boring. And she's like, I can't do it. Like, it's boring. I have to take this assessment. I don't want to write about this thing. She's not interested, right? And so I'm thinking, okay. And I see so many things about her. She's busy. She complains about it being boring. She's kind of underperforming in different things. And her cognitive nonverbal score was 99. And we looked at her math and said, okay, well, she's in the 88th percentile for how she's performing academically. But I think she has some other things going on. She's not engaged. And so so this year she also qualified based on our standards of, we're gonna look at just the cognitive assessment for our English language learners. So she qualified, and after going into the program, now she's doing different types of problems that are engaging and interesting to her. And her mom said to me, like, and actually it was interesting, I called her mom and I talked to her about it, and her mom said, I can't believe that she's also smart in English. And I thought, here she is, like, her mom sees her, and when she speaks Turkish, she knows that she's smart. But the mom had to realize that she's also smart in English. And her mom has reported now that she's super engaged and she loves school and she's doing so much better on all of these things that she's working on. So I feel really passionate about, about meeting the needs of our English language learners who are gifted. So anyways, teaching strategies. So again, because we have 65% of our population, we have all of these students who really are served in the classroom. A lot of our teachers are using these gifted strategies all day, every day with students. And so that's what, really having some of these heterogeneously grouped students. I also, before these students were identified as gifted and we placed them in the gifted program, I did a project with the gifted teacher, and I went into her classroom and we did a project together with the gifted kids and then, the English language learners. And it's amazing for the other kids, they're fascinated by these other kids who speak other languages. So I feel like the two groups can coincide and help one another so much. Trying to think, hands-on projects. Again, a lot of our gifted programming, oh yes.
Can I ask you a question on that point?
Yeah.
How much language immersion do you have between the two groups or with the groups?
So we have our program model for English language learners in our district is a full immersion program.
Okay.
So
full immersion into English. But is there
So the
any,
students
does
receive
it,
like pull-out services
what about
or
the
some
reverse?
tuition.
Like, are there any native English speakers that actually go into like Chinese immersion or Vietnamese immersion or?
Not in our district, no.
With these students?
We do have a lot of students, we have a very international school, we have students from all over the world. And a lot of families who are from other countries, their parents will spend like Saturdays, we go to Korean school. So we have so many students in our district who don't qualify as English language learners, but do have another language in their lives. And are bilingual, fully bilingual, but, yeah. Let's see what else I was gonna say about this. Yeah. So teaching strategies, collaboration, a lot of our progress towards identifying and serving this under-identified population has really happened because we work together. So Amanda and I are both on our district's gifted intervention specialist team, and coming with this background of TESOL and then also gifted, we're really able to think about these students and look at them. And as you saw from those two student profiles, they can look so different. But we're able to meet the needs of more of our English language learners who are gifted now. So hopefully, we're hoping that with this information, you can become more of an advocate for all gifted learners, but also for our under-identified populations as well.
Because Monica brought up all, in our meetings since she's joined the team, and she's brought up all of the concerns about the English language learners, we've actually begun looking at students of color, students from different, our African American students, our students who are maybe underrepresented, and we've actually been able to find ways to identify them as gifted and find that they actually are incredibly gifted students, and we've begun to be able to include them in our programs as well. So it's been really great exploring these strategies.
Do you have any questions? All right.
So just one last little thing, if you want to keep in touch, we have that QR code will take you to our website where we have some of our favorite books that we like to use as inspiration in the classroom, but also a link to our presentation from today too. So.
Everybody, I'll give you a couple minutes. All right, so this QR code and that bit.ly just give you this presentation. So if you want to go there and follow along, you have the presentation. Because I'm traveling, the distance I traveled, I didn't want to bring any handouts with me. I am Carmen Maples, and I currently live in a little town just north of Wilmington, North Carolina, which is on the beach. And I have had the opportunity to be involved in education since I graduated from BYU in 1984 with my bachelor's in elementary education. I have taken an interesting road and have taught in Kentucky, close to where Monica and Amanda are teaching. And I moved from there to the western part of Virginia in the mountains. And then I had the opportunity to move down to the coast in North Carolina where my husband was from. And I am currently teaching in Wilmington, North Carolina. And the neat part about North Carolina, I am an education specialist in the state, and I teach in an elementary school. And North Carolina is one of the few states in the nation that have a law on the books that says there has to be a gifted program in North Carolina. They've developed a set of standards. There are 6 standards: identification, how we serve them, comprehensive programming, how we differentiate for them, how we provide staff development for teachers, how we provide partnerships, and then also how we sort of evaluate or say we're doing those other 5 things. And North Carolina also gives specific dollar amounts to funding these programs. Now, don't get all excited, because of $100 that are spent in education in North Carolina, 3 cents go to gifted education. But in the past few years, they have said, in the past, those 3 cents have just gone into a general fund, and now the legislature has said those 3 cents have to be dedicated to gifted education. So the districts have to show in their audits how that money is going specific for gifted education.
I guess that's progress, right?
Well, considering North Carolina is one of the best states in the nation for gifted education, yes, that is progress. I teach in New Hanover County, which is the second smallest district in the state of North Carolina. But we are the 12th largest as far as the population goes. So we have a large population in a small place. The district has said, we love the money that the state gives us for gifted education, but we really want our gifted program to be better. So they have doubled or tripled the amount that the state gives us. And because of that, in every elementary and middle school, we have a full-time AIG specialist, and we have a half-time person in every high school. And our program, since I deal with elementary, I've given you sort of our framework. And you'll notice that there's a nurturing program. I have to teach K1 and 2 students and nurture them and sort of help them develop those thinking skills. And then we start formally identifying in 3rd grade. And in our school and in our district, we do a pull-out program for the most part for 3rd, 4th, and 5th once they're formally identified. The third part of my service as a gifted educator is working with teachers. And part of the reason why that's in there is that our district has taken sort of the NASA approach to gifted education. And I don't know if you've ever been involved with NASA, but NASA has this really fun program called Space Camp. Are you familiar with that? But you know that they have Space Camp for teachers? It's called SOAP, Space Orientation for Professional Educators. And it is really cool. And their objective for doing SOAP is that they feel like, yeah, they can teach kids or students or youth, but if they teach a teacher those same principles, they can reach thousands of children. So they would much rather spend their energy teaching teachers than teaching children, even though they'll do both, but they feel like it's more important to do that. So when I participated in SOAP, I got to meet astronauts and put on the suit and do the 360 thing and the jump and all of that. But I've also learned that working with teachers provides a much better element to passing on to students what you need to get to a larger group. So that's what our district has done also, and they have told me that I specifically have to do collaboration, I have to coach, I have to help teachers, because the state has said that gifted children are gifted all day, every day, not just the 40 minutes they come to me in a pull-out program. So we're not going to get them that services unless the classroom teachers are providing it. The school that I actually teach in is called Coddington Elementary School. It is a school of choice, and the choice is that it's a year-round schedule. So when I leave here, I have to go back to school and teach. This is my short break. I only get about 3 weeks in the summertime, and that sucks when you live at the beach. But it's really great because I get 3 weeks at Christmas, I get 3 weeks at Easter, and I get 3 weeks in the fall. So I can do a lot of neat things. We have an average of 575 students, and about 85% of that is white. We have a low population of minorities in my school because it's a school of choice.
What does school of choice mean?
That it's like a magnet school.
Okay.
They have to fill out an application to come there. It's not a neighborhood school.
And the special part is the year-round part?
The year-round,
Okay.
yes. And a lot like their districts, because it's a school of choice, our average EOG, which is end of grade, our state testing, for 2018, the pass rate, we had 95% pass rate. 95% of our students passed the test. So we can pass the test. We can do that. We have that there. As an average, I usually identify about 11% of the population based on the standards that the state that our district has put together. And I have to do that pull-out program besides working with those 3-5 students that are identified. I have to go into every kindergarten, first and second grade classroom and deliver at least 15 whole class lessons on how to think critically and creatively. And then sometime during the year for a grading period, I have to work with small groups of those K1 and 2 students. And then the other grading period, I have the opportunity to collaborate and work with teachers. For the identified students, I usually work with them 40 minutes a day for third graders or fourth graders, fifth graders, and I extend and enrich what's going on in the classroom. I do not teach content to them. So as I've been working with this collaboration and thinking about how I can pass on to teachers how to work with students, I've come up with several different ways and been taught several different ways to do it. And of course, there's different levels of collaborating. And one of them is what I call sort of the drive-by, where you just sort of put things out there and hope some people see it. And that's just providing material support. And sometimes it's emotional support, but you're not really in there physically doing anything with the students. The second level is like providing those material supports, but also sitting down and planning with teachers and helping them sort of see what they're supposed to be doing. And then the last level is full-on teaming participation. So let's look at these 3 different levels, and let's talk about that first one, where we do just the materials only. And we've all seen this, and in fact, that's what we're doing today, is you're getting my materials and I'm walking away, and I have no idea whether or not this is going to be helpful to you. I'm putting these ideas out there and showing you what I know, and hopefully we can get somewhere with this. I may never hear back from you. I may have no indication of whether or not this is going to be helpful. I've done it through staff presentations. A lot of times if I read an article that's really neat, I put it in, I photocopy it and use my numbers. We all know the sacred photocopy numbers. And put it in their boxes, or I might email it out to the staff. Sometimes I might stop in the hall and say, I found this really neat idea. If you want to sit down and talk about it, come and talk with me. I have no control over where they use it, and I get little to no feedback. And the parents and the students do not know that it's come from me. I get no recognition at all that this happens. So I want to give you a few ideas of what some of these look like. I wasn't sure whether or not we have time. It looks like we probably do, but we won't go there. But these are 3 things that I've done probably in the last 6 months. Have anybody heard of Everything is Alive? Have you heard of that site? Oh, you have to go there. It is so cool.
You want me to?
Sure, if you can. But Annika, this is great. I'm my own tech person. Okay, what these people have done is they've taken these inanimate objects and they interview them sort of like it's a PBS interview, you know? And so they talk about inanimate objects like a can of generic cola and a seat on the subway, you know, like a chair on the subway. And what do they do and how do they feel and what do they, and it's really kind of fun. Let's see if I can click on it and see if it will go. Oh, I said we weren't going to use sound, so we won't worry about that. But anyway, and I put this out there, and I said, think about it. If you're a classroom teacher and you want them to learn how to write dialogue, which is hard to do, especially in elementary school, you know, the punctuation and all that goes with it. If they had to write interview questions, think how that would go. And I put this out in a staff meeting and showed it and shared it with them, and a couple days later, an instructional assistant came up to me and she said, I was trying to teach the kids how to write a sentence. And I said, think about what this Post-it notepad would feel like. You know, how could you write down the question? And just even down on the first grade or kindergarten level. And so things like this that are out there and they seem like they're sort of on the edge can get kids involved and excited about things. You are amazing, thank you. Okay. The next one, don't click on that one, that's fine. Just, these are fine, okay? This one is which one doesn't belong, and that's which one doesn't belong, okay? And it's a lot like Sesame Street. One of these things is not, like, you know how it is, like that?
Yeah.
This site deals a lot with math, and it really is about the things that don't belong. And it goes all the way from an elementary level to a high school, college level of different math facts that you can do. And it's really getting the kids, the students, to try to figure out what things go together. And you don't have to just do it in math, but it can get your ideas thinking. So if you were in English class and you were reading, I don't know, a certain genre, and you wanted to say, and you put 3 books up there, and you'd say, which 3 of these books belong together and which one doesn't? And have the kids, because they've read all 3 of the books, okay, why do they go together? Why do they not go together? What's the grouping? What does it mean? Is one better than another? You can use those strategies, even though it's from Sesame Street. Those are strategies that you could use that are easy. The next one is from Birdseed. Is anybody familiar with Birdseed? Yes, if you're getting education, you know who he is. Okay. He has this thing that he brought up for Valentine's Day a few years ago called academic love letters, where you try to get 2 things that we don't normally think of being in love and put them together. So it might be a pencil and a pen, or it could be, trying to think of things like a car and a truck, I mean, just 2 things, and then you write a love letter to them. So I had this 5th grade teacher that took that, and she had her students, these are their names, these are the 2 things that they put together. This is what they have in common and sort of how they're going to write about it. So everybody did the love letter thing, but I love Mr. Shine, and that's his real name, okay? And he decided he was going to do the common cold and Clorox wipes, but he wasn't going to do a love letter, he was going to do a breakup letter. And he said, how much the cold hates Clorox wipes, I hate you because you prevent me from getting people sick. The other part of this assignment was that they had to use their vocabulary words in their love letter. So you'll see some of the sentences really are outlandish, but this she did actually share with me and help me see it. So here is Mr. Shine's letter. I really love this because this idea you could use for any content area, any subject. It doesn't have to be vocabulary, it doesn't have to be LA. You could do it in social studies, you could do it in science, you could do it in math. A lot of times we have trouble figuring out how we can do writing assignments in a math class. And I think this would just flow right into that. So these were 3 of my sort of drive-by suggestions that I wanted to share with you to show that even though you feel like you're just throwing things out there and hoping something sticks to the wall, they can be exciting and they can get some real engaging learning going on. Anybody have any questions about those? All right, so the next level of collaboration, it looks like we're going to be early for lunch. Yeah. All right. It deals with materials and planning. And this is where I bring those materials in, but I also sit down with the classroom teachers and say, what are you looking at? What are units of study? What are the state standards you're going to be teaching? And how can I help you? And what do you need from me? A lot of times teachers just need a little direction. So I'm helping with their planning, I'm providing training. Some teachers are not comfortable differentiating, providing those scaffolding or tiering those lessons, or going deeper. I've found, and I don't know if you all have found, but teachers are very comfortable when they differentiate down for those students that need more help. But when we talk about those academic and going higher, they're like, I don't know how to differentiate that way. I don't know what to do. So providing that training and support and being there is helpful to them. And sometimes they just need to see what it looks like on paper and they can do it on their own. Some teachers need me there to be with them, to team teach and to help them. And this is a longer time commitment than just dropping something and going. And it's really helping them meet their goals, but it's not necessarily something that I had planned to do. So I have more buy-in with this, and I have a little bit more control about how it's being used and being taught. But still, when push comes to shove, I don't get the recognition, and I get a little bit more feedback. So here are some examples of some of the things I've done. And these are fun projects. The standards that we deal with, these are North Carolina standards, and this is a 5th grade class. And they really look at the Revolutionary War period. And so they had to talk about the chronological events. They had to talk about the human activity and how it shapes the United States. And they had to look at immigration to the United States. And I was talking to the teacher about it, and she said, oh, I wish I could do something about it. And I said, well, you know, I have ancestors that migrated to the United States about this period of time. And I brought out my genealogy, and I showed it to her, and she was like, wow. And so we came up with this project to have the students trace their genealogy to see if any of their ancestors fought in the Revolutionary War in the United States. Because in my family, because of belonging to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I have a bucket load of ancestors that fought in the Revolutionary War, but not one of my ancestors fought in the Civil War. So that kind of gives you an idea, and I told that to her because we were also going to be looking at Civil War, and we got the students involved. They had to trace their genealogy, so we had to look at what it meant to trace, how to get a correct lead, a contact, the correct information. We couldn't just go flying off the handle whenever we thought something. And they had to actually do a family tree. They had to provide that information, and then they had to research. They had to choose an ancestor as far back as they could go and find out about that person. So you can see some of them brought in artifacts that belonged, and they have their family trees. They all developed a PowerPoint presentation. The neat part about this is that we collaborated with the local chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution. Yes?
Oh, I teach 5th grade, and history is like my passion, but I have so many, though, that are like first generation Americans, so they won't have that.
But they have some genealogy, and they can go back. Some of those children were in that situation, and so
Yeah,
we
some
had
of
them
them
go
are
as
from-
far as they could go.
Yeah, some of them I don't know, because it's like they're from India and China,
Yeah.
you know?
So it would be interesting to see, and they could bring their culture in and talk about it.
Yeah.
This teacher, because we got the DAR involved, actually won a grant from the local chapter of the DAR for this project. And then 4 months later, she won the national DAR grant for this project. So she got the recognition and the money. But that's what I mean. But I was involved with it, and I came in and I helped them research, and I provided the contact with the DAR and got a lot of that happening with her and had fun. You can tell I was listening to my friend right there, and we had it set up in the cafeteria and for like 2 hours just going around with that. Also, with another teacher, we looked at our ELA standards. And we talked about the point of view, and I don't know how many of you ever have seen those, the fractured fairy tales where they look at different points of view. And they actually have some of them written up where they're court cases, you know. And so I brought those to, and I have several that are that were written in a district in Virginia that I worked in, and we put them on. And so I have several of these plays. And I said, well, let's do these plays. And it talks about point of view. And she said, yeah, that's okay, but I'd rather do something more original. So we talked about the plays with the children, but then they actually had to develop the court case. And they chose Jack and the Beanstalk, and instead of the giant everybody has the giant suing Jack because he stole from him. They actually turned it around and said Jack was going to sue the giant for harassment. Okay, and so they had to prove their point. They had to figure out, they had to do all this research. We had lawyers come in, we did all this, and they actually put the trial on, and it was fun to do that. And the children grew exponentially in what they knew about how to write, how to ask questions, and they had they had to stand up and present in front of an audience, and even had to dress up like a lawyer and play their parts. So it was an amazing growth process for them. And once again, the teacher got the credit, but I was able to see that learning, that inspired learning happen. So then the last level of collaboration that I deal with is actually sitting down and teaming with the teacher. So in this, I sit down, we plan, we put the materials together, and then we both teach. And I have to be in direct contact with the students, and it's part of our goals. Our goals are shared. So I'm totally involved. I get a lot of the credit, and thankfully I get a balanced workload. Instead of having to provide all the materials, the classroom teacher helps with it. And I learn a great deal about my fellow teachers. So I'm just going to share two quick examples with you. The first one I did with a third grade teacher. And when I had that 9-week period when I could go in and work with them, I went to the third grade teachers a couple of weeks before that happened and said, I have this time, what can I do? It was a team of 4 teachers. 3 of the teachers said, we just want you to pull this group of kids out and do whatever you want to do with them. We just don't want to write with them. I was, well, that's not really collaborating. But that's what they decided. The third one, I had worked with a little bit more, and we had a stronger trust together. And she said, I want you to team with me, and I want you to help me provide activities that enrich and extend the curriculum that I'm teaching. She wanted to do it on Fridays. She wanted to do it totally performance tasks, so no worksheets. It all had to be performance-based. And she wanted us to be able to differentiate the group. So she was going to teach a group, I was going to teach a group, and we decided to have another volunteer, so we'd have 3 levels, a low, medium, and high group. And we would look at how we were going to work those. And we do this every Friday. And what we did was that we had to, we decided that there were going to be no grades for this. It was going to be a review of what the major skills that she had done the week before with the students. We decided we couldn't go on Teacher Pay Teacher or Pinterest and do any cute things. They had to have real meat to them. And we also knew on some level that we really had to trust each other, that we were going to teach what we needed to teach. And we found out as we were doing this that in order for this trust to really be there, we figured that we both had to be pretty masterful at what we did, that we had to know our content, and we had to know how to teach. And that's a strong lesson I've learned with collaborating and being able to make it successful and to be able to make sure that those activities are going to inspire students. So we did it in math, and we did lots of fun activities. I did a whole presentation on this in the North Carolina State Gifted Conference. So this is the URL for that, and if you've already URL, excuse me. This is the QR code for that, and if you've already got this presentation, that's a live link to that PowerPoint on this. But the students had some neat experiences with this, and we as teachers had some powerful takeaways from this opportunity. We started to hear lots more conversations between the students and their parents about math and what was going on in math, and about them being excited in math. All of the students, no matter what level they were on, were excited about Fridays. They really wanted Friday to come. And the groupings that we did, even though they were high, middle, and low, were flexible groupings. So some weeks I'd walk in and I would take the high groups and the gifted kids would not come with me and they were not happy. But she's the gifted teacher. You need a little more help with this skill. These students have mastered it, and so there was all that movement in there. Other times we found that when we leveled or we tiered the assignment and we gave a little bit more challenge to the gifted students, the students on the lower end had a level playing field, and they actually completed and understood the assignment faster than the AIG kids, and were able to talk with us and tell us what the objectives of the lesson were. And the gifted kids were getting very frustrated because they were finishing up and the gifted kids weren't. And they're like, how can that, we know this.
Oh, that's
You know,
so good
but
for them.
I know, and so it was helping them understand that grit and having to get through it, and things aren't going to naturally fall into place. And just because they have that opportunity to learn at a faster pace doesn't mean that they're always going to be the fastest done. We saw the application of those real life skills, of those problem solving skills in real life. They really had the opportunity to work with a variety of their classmates because of that flexible grouping, which was really neat. And there was not always an answer. Some problems we carried over from week to week and we never truly got an answer on one of them. But those children continued to work on it. It was really fun. The coolest part about it is that teacher's test scores, the end of grade math scores, the state standards test, she had the highest test scores in our region and one of the highest in the state that year. Partly because she's a masterful teacher, but I think what happened on those Fridays made a big difference with those students on all levels. It was engaging learning and it was really hitting them where they needed to be. The second project I want to talk to you about, I've just finished doing. Every year in North Carolina as a teacher, I have to put together a professional development plan on at least 2 goals that I'm going to do during the year. This year, my principal decided on a goal for me, everybody in the school, so I didn't have to worry about one, so I just had to come up with one on my own. And I worked together with the specialist in my building because I'm sort of a lone wolf and kind of trying to fit somewhere. And we sat down and said, why don't we get together and do this collaborative process? So the art teacher, the PE teacher, the music teacher, and myself said we were going to put on this presentation. And we based it on the books Giraffes Can't Dance. Everybody know about Gerald the giraffe that can't dance? I don't know if you've read the book or not, but go get it. It's fun. It's really cool. So there's my Gerald right there. So my 4th grade AIG students paired up with all of the 2nd grade students in the school. We did dancing, we did musical instruments, and you can tell that they did masks. It's based on an African jungle dance that happens every year. And it was powerful. It was amazing about what happened with these students. It was a year-long project. We had to have lots of common planning time, and rehearsals were trying to corral 100 2nd graders was daunting. But we discovered a lot of growth in our students, and you can tell that there's actually an adult in this dance. And the reason why that adult is there, it's hard to see, but there's the back of his head. That is a highly autistic child who's in one of our severe and profound programs. And because of what we did, he was included in this and was actually in that dance. So we had all levels of participation from those severe and profound students up to my AIG students. It was amazing. And when we got done, the teachers in the building came up to us and said, we cannot believe all the moving parts you had in this. But it worked out really well, and the kids were great. And this child's mother came up to me and said, he is so shy. She said, I can't believe he auditioned for this part and 2 actually did it. So Gerald was out front and center teaching us all how to really have fun. And then last, my school has had a hard year this year. 2 days before school started, we got a brand new principal. Bless his heart, right? 9 weeks, so we're 8 or 7 weeks into the school year, we had Hurricane Florence, which closed us down for 10 weeks. Luckily, it was during one of our breaks. We are also, during that, we are also a shelter. And so we sheltered for a few days, and then they closed us back up. And then they said, we need you to be a shelter for those people who need medical services. So once the shelter got closed down and everything was coming back, they had to go in and deep clean our school because of all the medical issues that were in there during the hurricane. We also had some other issues that brought our school to the forefront that were not very pleasant this year. And so by the time February, March came around, our staff was devastated. And we came across, myself and the instructional coach, came across this project where you give everybody a block of wood. It's just a bunch of different shapes and a piece of sandpaper, and you send them out and you have them painted and decorated. And they bring it back and you put it together. And as we were putting it together, you'll notice that we're the Coddington Cougars, so that's a cougar. That we noticed that our shapes came together to form that C. And when you do these things, when you work and you collaborate and you try and inspire learning, you will not believe the beauty that you can create, that you can help people, that will inspire them to move on. So I hope I've answered all your questions. I know it's getting close to lunch, but I am here. I'll give you my contact information. It's on the PowerPoint if you haven't gotten it already. But I would be more than happy to help, to provide information, to talk, to inspire, whatever you need me to do. And I hope that you can go home and have a great rest of your summer and think of me being back in the classroom.